So what do you think are the lessons learned from last night?
Well, this is going to be an interesting question because, look, there's no way that Trump was happy. You saw him afterwards. He was unhappy. You know, in fact, that was the problem for him last night was the nonverbal gestures. And you remember at the beginning he's using open hand gestures, and he's talking to the moderator and to the camera. As the evening went on, the gestures got more closed, you know, like the finger pointed and like this, and then he was pointing at her and pointing at it. So he went unhappy. So the question is, when they show up at the second debate, is he just going to go straight at her, or is he going to understand that it's better done lightly and then pivot to what it is that he's going to do? His object is not to simply prosecute the case against her. It is to say, okay, let me remind you gently of really bad things over there, and then let me tell you what I'm going to do that's going to be different. He did have the argument last night, I'm the candidate of change. He needs to prosecute that more in the next debate by saying, here's the change I represent.
Yeah. I also felt that there wasn't a lot of sort of gracious, you know, moments where somebody took a breath and talked about why they want to be president of this country, what it means to them, how humbled they are by this place that they find themselves, and what they want to offer. Those moments, it was pretty much hammer, 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 and they're going to be in a town hall next time. So what would you recommend?
Well, and remember, this is a bigger obstacle for her than him, because he can sit there and say, you know, like he did last night on the economy, it ain't great. He can say on the world, it's in flames. But he's got to pivot to say, and here's what I would do differently. She is simultaneously the candidate of the status quo and somebody who better not be simply the candidate of the status quo. So she has to depict a vision of the future that's different than today, so that people say, well, you know what? She has been up there, but she's got new and different ideas about where we need to go as a country that makes sense to me. And that's really hard to do given how much baggage she comes in with having been in our lives for 30 years in politics, and for the last, you know, the first 4 years of the Obama administration as Secretary of State.
Is it harder in the town hall environment to sort of prosecute your case, though, on things like Benghazi?
Sure it is.
On things like the email? All the people are staring at you with their anxious, eager faces, listening to your answers. And
the moderator is sort of out of it. The moderator introduces the questioner, so you're really having a conversation with an individual. And it looks really bizarre if they'd ask you a question and you suddenly take the opportunity to slap at the other person. She was better at this last night, because even when she went after him, she didn't look at him. It wasn't about him. It was about her conversation with the moderator. So he's got to figure out how to do that, because you're right, it constrains your ability to attack in that kind of thing.
She had absolutely no what difference does it make type moment last night. I was marveling at her sort of ability to keep it cool, because he was going at her, interrupting her all the time, and she kept that smile on her face. And, you know, you look at the likability numbers, the favorability numbers, clearly that was one of her major focuses.
Well, what's also interesting, you mentioned interruptions. He interrupts her 51 times. She interrupts him 17 times, but she came across as significantly fewer interruptions, because hers were gentle. His tended to be like he'd lean into the microphone and say, that's not true. And, you know, he has this habit of sort of boggling his shoulders, which is fine. But when he gets angry, he sort of umps it like this, grabs the podium and hangs onto it, and looks like he is angry. And a lot of this is nonverbal. He wasn't having fun last night. She looked like, well, she wasn't having fun. She was, you know, she was amused at the evening.